Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Friday, June 2nd, 2023. If you like what you see, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my $19 rundown best bet, you can find those at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games for Friday in Major League Baseball. First up, it's the Milwaukee Brewers taking on the Cincinnati Reds. Corbin Burnes and Brandon Williamson are your projected starters. This game's going to be a 5:10 Eastern start time on Apple TV. You know, the Brewers have not hit lefties very well this season or last year, but they do face one of the weaker lefties in the National League, in my opinion, in Brandon Williamson, who only has 3 starts at the Major League level. He pitched well in his first game, but struggled in his last 2. The Reds have still won each of his first 3 starts, but I don't like their chances in this game against Corbin Burnes, coming off one of his best starts of the season. Burnes went 7 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts against the San Francisco Giants in his last game. No home runs allowed in that one. We know Burnes has had some issues with the home run ball this season, but Cincinnati, much better numbers against lefties and righties this year. Burnes pitched well against them last season. I think the Brewers win this one. Even though they don't hit lefties well, it's why it's not my favorite game on the board, but I'll take a lean here with Milwaukee laying the 1.5 runs. Next up, we see the Oakland Athletics taking on the Miami Marlins. We're going to see Hogan Harris and Edward Cabrera on the mound in this one. This is going to be the first start of the season for Hogan Harris, as he was featured out of the bullpen in his last 2 appearances. The first appearance out of the bullpen did not go too well. Only in third of an inning, 6 earned runs and 5 walks against the New York Mets in a 17-6 Oakland A's loss. That was back on April 14th. And his most recent appearance out of the bullpen was really just like a extended relief appearance after an opener by Pruitt. He went 5 innings, he went 1 hit, 5 strikeouts, no earned runs against the Houston Astros. So pretty impressive stuff, but the A's still lost that game. And it just goes to show you this A's bullpen and the lineup just not very good this season. One of the worst teams really historically, one of the worst starts for a team to have in MLB history. So it's tough to get there with Oakland here. As a lefty, Harris is facing a Marlins team that hits lefties very, very well. So even though he pitched well in his last game, I just don't know if I can trust him here. I also don't trust the Oakland A's bats because Edward Cabrera, although he's got that 5.02 ERA, I do think he's a much better pitcher than that. His strikeout stuff is really good. He does have some control issues, but he pitches a lot better at Lone Depot Park. 20 innings, 28 strikeouts, a 3.6 ERA so far at home this season compared to an ERA just below 6 on the road. So I think Cabrera is good enough here. I think the Marlins back him up offensively. Give me the Miami Marlins laying the 1.5 runs on the run line. Next up, it's the Philadelphia Phillies taking on the Washington Nationals. Zach Wheeler and Josiah Gray are your projected starters. Going into Josiah Gray's last start, I had some regression concerns in his game because you look at his ERA on paper, good stuff. Right now, 2.77 ERA. However, an xFIP at 4.97, a FIP at 4.5. His walks and his control overall was just not in the best of shape, and we've seen now in his last 25 innings, 19 walks allowed, including 3 more in 4 innings against the Royals in that last start. He really wasn't that great in that game, even though the Nationals went on to win that one 4-2. Gray only went 4 innings of work, giving up that home run as well. I do worry about him in a game like this, especially facing Zach Wheeler, who's coming off one of his best starts really of his career, but certainly this season. 8 innings, 12 strikeouts, no earned runs against the Braves in a 2-1 Phillies win. A very tough Braves lineup on the road. Wheeler was exceptional in that game. I think he's good enough here. Even though the Nationals do a good job at limiting strikeouts, I think Wheeler's the much better option. I think the Phillies bats wake up a little bit. They do walk a lot against right-handed pitchers, so that benefits them against a starter who has control issues like Gray. Give me the Philadelphia Phillies on the run line on the road. Next up, it's the St. Louis Cardinals taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. Jack Flaherty and Rowanzi Contreras are your projected starters. St. Louis had some tough series against the Guardians and the Royals this past week, but I like their chances in this matchup against Rowanzi Contreras, a starter they already faced once this season. And Contreras was featured out of the bullpen in his last game against the Mariners. He fared pretty well in those 2 innings of shutout baseball, but in the starting pitching role, we've seen Contreras struggle in the month of May. We saw it, a 5.18 ERA, good amount of home runs, a lot of walks, not a ton of strikeouts, only 12 Ks and 24 1/3 innings of work. Now, it's interesting to see, how far Contreras pitches in this game, as, like I mentioned, he was featured out of the bullpen for 2 innings last appearance. So, that'll be interesting, but I think St. Louis is still the better team here, even though their offensive struggles the last week. Jack Flaherty's in good form. I like the Cardinals in this matchup. Give me St. Louis on the road on the money line. Next up, we see the Tampa Bay Rays taking on the Boston Red Sox. Tyler Glasnow and Garrett Whitlock are your projected starters. Glasnow had a really tough matchup in his first start of the season at the major league level against the Los Angeles Dodgers. But, even though he gave those 3 earned runs and a home run in that 6-5 Rays loss, I thought, 8 strikeouts in 4 1/3 innings. I thought he looked fine in that game, and when he's healthy, he's one of the better strikeout pitchers in the American League. I think he bounces back here. I think he gives the Rays 5 strong innings. And, Garrett Whitlock's been very inconsistent this year. We saw him pitch well in his first start back from the injury against Arizona. 5 innings, 1 run, but he gave up a home run in that game. He's given up 5 home runs now this season and only 21 innings of work. At Fenway Park, that's a problem for me. I do think the Rays are the better lineup here, even though the bullpen's not been the best in the month of May. I think Glasnow's good enough start here for Tampa Bay to win this one in the end. So give me Tampa Bay. You could take them in the first 5 innings, but I think they get the job done in the full game as well. Next up, it's the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the New York Mets. We're going to see Chris Bassitt and Justin Verlander on the mound. And this one, like I mentioned in the previous rundown, we have 2 games back-to-back for the Mets taking on former starting pitchers in Taijuan Walker on Thursday, and Chris Bassitt on Friday night. Chris Bassitt has really struggled on the road this season. He's been really strong at Rogers Center, but on the road an ERA above 5, and we've seen his last 2 starts, both of those games were on the road. He had really big issues with the home run ball, 5 home runs in 10 1/3 innings, 9 total earned runs, and 13 total runs allowed, so a good amount of unearned runs as well. His defense not really helping him out. His strikeout numbers have been fine, but a lot of base hits, a lot of base runners. Of course, that sharp contact and back-to-back losses for Toronto. So it's tough to trust him here against the former team. Mets lab is certainly improving against right-handed pitchers. Justin Verlander was certainly not his best in his last game, but that was at Coors Field against the Rockies team that's number 1 in baseball. It was the number 1 team in baseball in team OPS against righties in the month of May. So I think I can let that start slide from Verlander. Before that, he went 8 innings of 1-run ball against the Guardians in a 2-1 Mets win in Flushing. I think he pitches well, good enough here for the Mets to grab a W. So give me the New York Mets here against their former starter on the money line. Next up, we see the Seattle Mariners taking on the Texas Rangers. Luis Castillo and John Gray are your projected starters. This is a great pitching matchup here. 2 sub-3 ERA starters in the American League in this big-time division rivalry. Both starting pitchers have already faced the opposition once this year. John Gray, he was exceptional against the Mariners back on May 8th. 7 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts. Really just one mistake pitch to Ty France, and it was a home run in the early innings of that game. And other than that, he was just pretty much dominant. 2-1 Rangers win in that one. In fact, the Rangers won every single game that John Gray pitched in or started in the month of May. So they've won a lot of his games recently, most of those wins on the run line. While Luis Castillo had struggled at one point at the beginning of May, including a start against these Rangers where he went 5 innings, only 5 innings. He had 9 strikeouts, but he gave up a home run. He gave up 3 earned runs, and he also gave up 8 base hits. So a lot of base runners in that game. Now, he's been really sharp as of late, his last 2 starts, but you got to look at the teams that he faced. He was also pitching at home against the A's and the Pirates. So, some of the weaker labs in baseball against righties in that month of May. Now you're on the road against the Rangers team that in the month of May at home at Globe Life Field, number 1 in baseball against righties in isolated power, number 1 in team OPS. The strikeout rate was a little bit high, so I could see Castillo still earning some swing and misses in this game, but I still think he struggles in this one. I think Gray's going to be really sharp. Give me the Texas Rangers on the money line at home. Next up, it's the Los Angeles Angels taking on the Houston Astros. No official starter for Houston right now, but I am seeing Christian Javier on ESPN, so he could very well be the starter that goes. And Shohei Ohtani on the mound for the Halos. Shohei Ohtani pitched pretty well in the beginning innings of that game against the Astros not too long ago in the beginning of May. He struggled in the middle innings, and he gave up a home run to Martin Maldonado in that one. It was a 3-1 Angels loss, but since then, we saw him struggle against the Orioles, and still the Angels won that game 9-5. He's pitched really well in his last couple of games against the Twins and the Marlins. 6 innings, 1 run, 9 strikeouts. 6 innings, 1 earned run, 10 strikeouts. So I think he's good enough here against an Astros team that we've mentioned, before has not been the best against right-handed pitchers. A little bit different now with Jose Altuve in the lineup, but I still think that the Angels are the better side here. Christian Javier, if he is the starter, I think he pitches well in this game, but we know he has issues with the home run ball. We've seen him give up at least 1 home run in each of his last 4 starts. The Angels, pretty powerful lineup against right-handed pitchers this year, so it's also a little bit concerning that Javier's strikeout numbers, not the best in his last couple of games. Only 8 Ks in 11 innings with 2 home runs to go with it. I'm going to take the Angels here on the money line on the road. Next up, it's the Cleveland Guardians taking on the Minnesota Twins. Aaron Savale and Bailey Ober are your projected starters in this one. I just don't think this is a very good spot for Aaron Savale to be in. In the minor leagues, in the rehab outings, he didn't fare too well. I mean, an ERA of 4.9, 11 innings of work, 13 base hits, 4 walks to go with it, 2 home runs. We know Savali's had some issues with the home run ball in his career, so you're facing a very powerful lineup in the Minnesota Twins against right-handed pitchers this season. Pretty patient lineup as well, pretty good walk rates, especially in the month of May against righties. So I think Savali struggles here on the road. His first start back at the major league level since almost 2 months ago, April 7th. And Bailey Ober's pitched well this season. I think he's good enough here for the Twins to grab the W. So give me Minnesota on the money line. Next up, we see the Colorado Rockies taking on the Kansas City Royals with Chase Anderson and Jordan Lyles on the mound. You got a Rockies team. It was number 1 in baseball in team OPS against righties in the month of May, facing a starter in Jordan Lyles, who currently is 0-9 and 7.3 ERA this season with a bad Royals bullpen to back him up. On the other side, you had a Royals team that hits righties very well at Kauffman Stadium, facing a pitcher in Chase Anderson who's got a good ERA on paper, 1.31. However, an xFIP above 5 at 5.11 doesn't really strike out a lot of guys. I expect major regression in his game going forward. Give me the over here in Colorado, Kansas City. Next up, we see the Detroit Tigers taking on the Chicago White Sox. Reese Olson making his major league debut for the Tigers, a no official starter for the White Sox right now. The Tigers are in a tough spot in their rotation. A lot of injuries so far this year. It's still waiting for Casey Mize to return from Tommy John surgery. You got Matt Manning, who went down early. A lot of guys that have had to been brought up from the minor leagues, and Reese Olson's one of them. Number 11 prospect in the Tigers organization. I'm not sure he's major league ready. He's pitched 36 and 2/3 innings at AAA Toledo this season. He has struggled, a 6.38 ERA. His strikeout numbers are really good. 47 Ks in those innings, so 11.5 Ks per 9. But a lot of walks, 22 walks, that's 5.4 walks per 9. Some home runs to go with it, a lot of base runners, pretty steep whip at 1.745. It's tough to trust him in this spot, even though we've seen some starters struggle in the minor leagues and then move up to the major leagues, pitch well in their debut. I just can't predict it in this one. Give me the Chicago White Sox and a lean here. We'll have to see who Chicago goes with on the mound, but a lean towards the White Sox on the money line. Next up, it's the Atlanta Braves taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Charlie Morton and Merrill Kelly are your projected starters. Merrill Kelly pitched really well in his last start against a tough Red Sox lineup. 6 1/3 innings, 1 run, 10 strikeouts, and a 4-2 Diamondbacks win. The D-backs have won 4 of the last 5 starts that Merrill Kelly has made, and all 4 of those wins were by 2 or more runs. I like their chances in this game, even though Kelly's faced some weaker lineups as of late, and this is certainly one of the tougher lineups in the National League. Kelly, although his ERA was not the best at the beginning of the season at Chase Field, his numbers still overall are good there. 36 innings, 44 strikeouts, a 179 opponent's batting average. He's pitched well at Chase Field. His control's been off here and there, but his last start, only 2 walks in those 6 1/3 innings. You'll take that all day long. I think Kelly's good enough, and Charlie Morton this season actually has better numbers away from home than he does at Truist Park, which last year was a complete opposite by far. But the Diamondbacks are a very tough lineup to face. They don't strike out much. They will get on base via the walk. They will take a lot of infield singles. They're a very fast team. They steal a lot of bases. So I don't think this is the best matchup for Charlie Morton. I'm going to take the Arizona Diamondbacks at home here on the money line. Next up, it's the Chicago Cubs taking on the San Diego Padres. We're going to see Jameson Taillon and Michael Wacha on the mound in this one. And Jameson Taillon, an 8.04 ERA, but a 4.68 xFIP, almost half his current ERA. Pretty good strikeout numbers this season, and you're facing a Padres team and a Padres lineup that's just been such a major disappointment this season. Obviously, the Padres off to a losing start to the year, and their numbers at home against right-handed pitchers in the month of May, a 598 OPS is the second worst in baseball. Their isolated power was the worst in baseball at home against righties, so it's tough to lay this kind of price with now. I just think based on value alone, the Cubs are worth a shot here. Michael Wacha, he's got good numbers as of late, but his strikeout numbers aren't the best. They've been very inconsistent this year. I think Chicago does enough here. I think it's probably going to be a low-scoring game, but I think they do enough to cover the run line in the end. So give me the Chicago Cubs plus the 1.5 runs on the road. Next up, one of the more anticipated series of the weekend, the New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Dodgers. Luis Severino and Clayton Kershaw on the mound in this one. Always fun when these two teams meet up, and Clayton Kershaw has struggled as of late. His last 2 starts, back-to-back games, giving up 4 earned runs against the Cardinals and the Rays. Not really pitching deep into those games. His strikeout numbers have been good, but his control's been off a little bit, and the Yankees have hit lefties very, very well in the last 30 days or so. When you look at their numbers in the month of May, isolated power was 4th best against lefties. Their OPS was 5th best, and a high walk rate of 10.5%. So I do think the Yankees will be able to get to Kershaw. I think Severino pitches well enough in this game for the Yankees to grab the win. I don't think he's going to be untouchable. I mean, this is a very tough Dodgers lineup to face, especially at Dodger Stadium. But Severino's pitched one start on the road, one start at Yankee Stadium. He's fared well in both of those games. He's looked pretty good on the mound. I mean, only one earned run in each of those first two starts against the Reds and Padres. 2 wins for the Yankees in the end. I'm going to take the Yankees here, getting a really good price on the road on the money line. And the final game for Friday's card in Major League Baseball, it's the Baltimore Orioles taking on the San Francisco Giants. Dean Kramer and Logan Webb are your projected starters. I'm going to take the under in the first 5 innings between these two teams. Logan Webb has just been in great form. One of the best pitchers in the month of May, in my opinion. When you look at his last start against the Brewers, 7 innings, 1 run, 11 strikeouts in that one. He's at a sub-2 ERA at Oracle Park this season, 1.65 in 32 2/3 innings, 35 strikeouts. His ground ball stuff is starting to work a lot better as of late as well. In the month of May, a 57-34 ground ball to fly ball ratio. The Orioles, they have a very good lineup, but I do think they struggle early on, at least in this game. While on the other side, Dean Kramer, also in the month of May, really made some big improvements in his game. He faced some tough lineups, the Braves, the Rays, the Angels, the Blue Jays, and the Rangers, either winning teams, some of the teams winning their divisions, or really, really strong lineups against right-handed pitchers. And Kramer did not give up more than 3 earned runs in any of those starts. His strikeout numbers were getting better, his ground ball rate was getting better, and he was also getting out of a lot more jams for Baltimore when he was putting guys on early in innings. I think he pitches well enough to keep this game low scoring in the first 5. Give me the under 4 runs in the first 5 between Baltimore and San Francisco. And that's it. Those are the games for Friday in baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.